Hello everyone, good evening and welcome back to LiveLaw Academy. I hope all of you are doing great. Yes. So today we have one more question that we'll try to solve, which has been asked previously in your Rajasthan Judiciary examination, keeping in mind that all of you must be preparing right now for this paper. And also because this is a relevant topic, if you have CPC in your exam, if you have criminal law in your exam, or if you have law of torts in your exam, you must have heard of the term nuisance, right? And here specific question is with regards to who can institute a suit in case of a public nuisance or other wrongful act affecting the likely to affect the public. So let's try to understand that what all do you have to know. Let's say if you are somebody who has only and only heard of the term nuisance, you should structure your answer or you should structure your understanding first and foremost with the idea of the definition. Okay, so what is nuisance, and very specifically here it has been asked that what is public nuisance. So do we have some law wherein we have defined this term? And if not in any of these statutes which I've mentioned here, which is your CPC or your CRPC, now BNSS, whether it is mentioned in the General Clauses Act or not, because you may have seen that General Clauses Act provides or gives you the residuary definition of a lot of things which are not mentioned in the specific laws. So we try to find out the definition and try to understand what really constitutes nuisance. Okay, there are three legs of this discussion. This question specifically is for 3 marks, and you're not expected to write a lot. If you see the amount of space that you have, you can't be really writing what all we are going to discuss here, but I'm going to cover the topic for you in a manner so that you understand it in its entirety. Okay, so we start with knowing that what is the definition or what is the idea of nuisance, what is private and public nuisance. In under torts law, we recognize both and we grant you remedy for both. Okay, for a private nuisance you can get compensation. Even for public nuisance you can get the remedy, different remedies that are available. For example, damages that you can seek, then we have injunction, you can do abatement. There are multiple remedies, right, of this sort. Then we also recognize that public nuisance specifically is considered as one of the offenses under IPC or BNS, right? And therefore, what is this public nuisance? Had this question not been related to a suit, that is a civil suit, you may have or you would be expected to write about public nuisance. So if we say who can initiate the proceedings of public nuisance, or what is the remedy available for a case of public nuisance? Now here this is an open-ended question wherein you are expected to know both the civil and the criminal aspect of the law, right? So public nuisance also falls under the criminal law, and therefore there is procedure also specifically mentioned under CRPC and BNSS. So it is categorized as an offense under IPC and BNS, and there is a procedure for dealing with the same. Okay, then on the third leg we talk about public nuisance, which is a civil wrong, wherein we see that there is a procedure mentioned as to who will apply for this sort of public nuisance. And this question is specific to that, as to who can institute. So there must be a structure, right? There are authorities that are mentioned. It is mentioned that whether you need to seek the approval or the consent of the court for filing a suit of public nuisance. Who can file it? Can it be me alone? Can it be Akansha ma'am alone? Or does it have to be 10 people, all of us coming together to institute the suit? So this is how you understand that nuisance is covered in different aspects. Now we start with the understanding, preliminary understanding of what is nuisance. So whenever you read something, try to find out the ingredients of it. Okay, now if you see the definition, you will realize that this is a fragment of right to property. If I am living in my house, I have right to peaceful enjoyment of my house, right? The minute you enter my property, you are trespassing on my house, correct? At the same time, let's say you do not enter into my property, but next to my house, you have your lawn area or you have your garden area wherein you are playing loud music. Now, despite of you not physically transgressing into my property, you still have caused certain annoyance to me. You still have caused some impatience to me, right? And that can be categorized as nuisance. So nuisance is an injury, is an annoyance that happens to your mind. The stimulation happens to your mind, but this is this is taking away your right of peaceful enjoyment of your property. Okay, so this is the simplest way by which you can understand it, and when you're writing your answer you can definitely mention these jurists and you can write down their definition. So Stephen has defined nuisance to be anything done to the hurt or annoyance of the land tenements of another, not amounting to trespass. As I'm telling you, if you see the definition, you may find that, what is really the distinction between nuisance and trespass. So the distinction lies on the fact as to whether you are physically transgressing or not. And without even physically transgressing, also by fumes, by smoke, by gaseous material, noise, heat, vibrations, there can be different ways by which you can cause nuisance. So we have a lot of cases which I'll show you here. We may not discuss it because the question is not expecting you to mention these, but you should know it for your understanding. So yeah, so these are the essential. There has to be an unlawful and an unreasonable interference. Now we do realize that there are certain religious processions. Now we live in India, wherein these processions take place. Right, when we have Ganpati, we see those processions. When we see and we hear azans also. Right, so all these are reasonable interferences which we have recognized, which the courts have allowed, ensuring that a person, all these other people have right to religion, right, which is part of your fundamental right. But at the same time, if this exceeds the limit, then in that situation, it can be categorized into nuisance. Okay, so it has to be an invasion on the legal right of a person. It has to be a voluntary act or omission. It must cause certain substantial harm to you, as you understand. When you go for filing a suit for public nuisance, okay, you will see from the provision itself of CPC, it very specifically says that you do not have to prove a substantial harm to yourself. Now I have the section here. Let's read the section. Okay, section 91 allows that in case of public nuisance, the Attorney General, now very specifically, now because it is public nuisance, it is causing nuisance to a lot of people together. That is why the name has been given private nuisance, wherein I am getting annoyed because of the music that my neighbor plays. And this is a very specific remedy to me. This is a very specific wrong done to me. And therefore, it becomes private nuisance, a private wrong. But if it is a public nuisance, all right, in that situation, if let's say there is construction happening or there is metro construction happening, you realize that they have not taken measures and it is causing a lot of pollution, it is causing a lot of traffic, a lot of noise, a lot of dust particles, then in that situation, a lot of people are getting affected at the same time, right? So that can be an example of public nuisance. And therefore, that is the reason Section 91 specifically says that it is the Advocate General who has the authority, who has the position to file a suit for public nuisance. Not just him, two or more persons having obtained the consent in writing of the Advocate General may also institute a suit. Therefore, we realize and we understand that there can be two or more people also who can do so. Because again, this is public nuisance. Here, you have to ensure that there is actually, before allowing these parties to go to the court, there some wrong has happened to them is not important, because for that they already have the remedy of private nuisance. And therefore, here we have to ensure at this preliminary stage itself as to whether there is a public nuisance that is happening and whether these people are trying to whistleblow or trying to make aware the court of the same or not. Okay, so these can institute a suit through though no special damage has been caused to them. So it is not required, as I'm telling you, this is not required. So now I have shown you a question from mains examination, but even from your preliminary examination, you can be expected to know that special damage is not a necessity. If you study it in torts, you will understand that for a case of private nuisance, you will have to prove special damages, but that is not required, very specifically mentioned in CPC. Okay. Now, what are the suits for? It can be for declaration, it can be for injunction, it can be for compensation or any other relief that is so required here. Okay. What if you practically start thinking, what remedies would you want if somebody is causing nuisance? You would want it to be stopped, right? So you would ask for injunction. You would want whatever damages, whatever losses happen, for it to be corrected. So you can ask for that as well, right? Not personal compensation to yourself, but for it to be corrected in a manner. And you can also ask for a declaration, declare that this is unauthorized work and this should not continue. So this is declaratory decree, can also be taken from the court under this. And now, very clearly, can I, at the same time, when I am out of these two people, I am applying for a suit of public nuisance. At the same time, this, because of the construction of the metro which is being done wrongfully, I am continuously getting affected and I have now asthma, right? So in that situation, can I go and file another suit and seek remedy for curing of this asthma? So now here, this provision answers the same. It says that nothing in this section shall be deemed to limit or otherwise affect the right of suit of the of an individual person which is independent from this. Okay, so you can at the same time, that is why no special damages are required here. Now when you go and file a suit here, you will have to prove, you will have to convince the court that there are certain special damages. This is the ground for which I am filing a suit for private nuisance as well. So from a case of public nuisance, can there be private nuisance as well? Yes. And if you want to sue for this, you will have to prove special damage. Here, special damages are not required to be proven. Okay, so you know the authority. Now you know the provision also under which you have to file a case. Okay, you can, in your answer, you can just start with what is nuisance. You can mention that public nuisance has been defined under Section 2, Clause 48 of the General Clauses Act, and there it is specifically mentioned that it is the same definition which is mentioned in the IPC, which says that if any act or illegal omission which causes common injury, danger, annoyance to the public or to people in general who dwell or occupy the property in vicinity, or which must necessarily cause injury, obstruction, danger, annoyance to person, has been said to have violated the public right. Okay, so what is the act here and what is the wrongful mind here? So here, you by an act, wrongful act, or by illegal omission, you are doing what? You're causing common injury, danger, or annoyance. So you see how it is considering and how it is taking into fact the injury happening to your mind also to be considered as a public or a private nuisance. Okay, so this is how, what all you can mention in your answer with regards to the idea of who will file a suit for public nuisance. Now because we are discussing this, let me just give you a few more points as to what all you have to learn from this. You can definitely take help of this case, and you can understand as to how a nuisance is perceived in our country. Okay, so neither the government or nor the local authorities, they are expected to be vigilant, and they can't be sleeping on their rights, and they are expected to immediately ensure that the public nuisance is cured. Okay, so public nuisance becomes a challenge to social justice because we realize that there is how people living in different places, slum areas, rural areas, urban areas, they face different type of nuisance, and accordingly the authority is now expected, both local and the government is expected to provide immediate relief to the parties, and that is why it is also considered as an offense. See the gravity of the wrong. We are recognizing that merely if you are causing annoyance to a person also, which has to be a big group of people, right? So there's no straitjacket formula. It doesn't say it has to be 10 people, 100 people, lakhs of people, but it has, for it to be public nuisance, it should be affecting substantially some people for the enjoyment of their land. Okay, the land which has different aspect, not just the physical possession of it. There are a lot of rights which are related to land. So when we talk about prescription, when we talk about easement, when we talk about right to fishery, all these are rights which are related to for your right of way, for your enjoyment of property. So, and then accordingly, you have to remember it and accordingly mention your answer. Okay. So this is the distinction between private nuisance and public nuisance. It affects broader community, obstructs public rights such as access to roads and clean waterways. Uh, all these can be understood as the grounds of public nuisance. I'll give you another English case also. So you have now two cases. One is the municipal corporation of Ratlam versus Vardichan, and we have this case. This is the English case wherein the church used to ring bell at odd hours, okay, and it was annoying for the entire society or for the entire number of people who were living near the church, and therefore the court recognized it to be considered as a ground of public nuisance. And whosoever is living more closely to the church, they can also ask for private nuisance on proving as to how they have occurred or how they are facing any sort of special damage. Okay, so you can just remember this one English case also for your understanding for your exam. Okay, now every nuisance has to have certain things. Okay, first is that it has to have undue and unreasonable interference, and it must be interfering with the right of enjoyment of land. It doesn't have to be special damages, but at least two things are required: that there is unreasonable interference, and this interference can be with regards to the corporeal enjoyment of the property as well as the incorporeal property. Okay, so I have already given you example of incorporeal rights related to the property: easements, profits upon rent, it can be right of way, it can be right of fishery. All of these are different examples of your incorporeal rights as well. Okay, and accordingly this also leads into the violation of the right of a person and leads into ultimately being private or public nuisance. Okay, so this is section 91. We have these examples which I have already given you, and we also have the criminal offense of public nuisance. Okay, so I have mentioned here section 268 of IPC, which tells that what is public nuisance, all these ways by which nuisance can be done, and also what will be the punishment for public nuisance. Okay, so remember, when you see a question on nuisance, ensure that you are seeing and you are understanding that whether or not they are asking me to attempt the question with regards to mentioning what is public nuisance in civil law or in criminal law, and accordingly try to attempt your answer. Okay, I hope this was beneficial for you. If you get this question, you'll be able to write a decent answer. If you have any doubts, you can please write it in the comment section and I'll be more than happy to help. Thank you.